Hello and welcome to my Australian Grand Prix weekend recap. Now there's a ton to get into as this was a crazy race, but in this video I'll be covering what happened in the race, what are the most competitive teams based off their performance from this race, as well as some storylines that we'll want to follow for the remainder of the season. With that, let's jump into it and discuss what happened. So some of the main talking points of this race were the weather conditions. There was rain throughout the race, although it wasn't raining consistently. This meant that the teams had to switch back and forth from intermediate tires to dry and back to intermediate. The track was wet enough as the race got going that we saw 3 cars retire before the end of the second lap. The 3 cars were Isaac Hadjar, who retired on the formation lap, Jack Doohan, who crashed on lap 1, and then, surprisingly, Carlos Sainz, who crashed under safety car on lap 2. We later saw Fernando Alonso crash on lap 34, causing all of the cars that were on the intermediate tire to come into the pits and switch to medium or hard tires. Now, the medium tire runners thought that they would prefer the tire to warm up quicker, which in the cold, wet conditions is an advantage, though because it was a 57-lap race, there were question marks if they could make it all the way to the end. The hard tire runners were hoping for dry conditions the rest of the race, where their tire could come alive later. This didn't end up happening, and we saw rain come, I believe, around lap 45. This saw both McLarens go off track, and Oscar Piastri nearly end his race entirely. He was eventually able to rejoin, although he was a lap down. At the end of the race, we saw Lando Norris take victory ahead of Max Verstappen and George Russell. Kimi Antonelli finished 4th on the road, though with a 5-second penalty was surpassed by Alex Albon. Also in the top 10 were Lance Stroll, Nico Hülkenberg, Charles Leclerc, and Oscar Piastri, who recovered from a lap down incident about 12 laps before the end of the race. Retiring from the race were Liam Lawson, Gabriel Bortoleto, Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, Jack Doohan, and Isaac Hadjar, meaning only Oliver Bearman and Kimi Antonelli were the remaining rookies to finish their first race. So let's talk about performance. What teams and drivers looked great, and which ones had work to do? Starting at the top, obviously McLaren was by far and away the best team. This is besides the fact that Oscar Piastri finished 9th. That was due to unfortunate timing with weather, and brings up concerns of their team strategy, which plagued them last year. Besides that, their car was certainly the class of the field and was pulling away from everybody in the first stint. We saw them build about a 15-second gap to Max Verstappen, and they were lapping the second Red Bull pretty early on in the race. Surprisingly, Max Verstappen in the Red Bull was the second best car for most of that race. I say surprisingly because in testing it looked like they were on the back foot and they had a lot of work to do, but they really came to this race and turned things around. That is to say that Max Verstappen in the Red Bull turned things around. Liam Lawson really struggled and at times was lapping 3 seconds a lap slower than Verstappen. This may be his rookie nerves getting the best of him. We'll want to watch and see how that plays out. The 2 Mercedes looked good. Kimi Antonelli was shaky and almost crashed out of the race, although again he finished 5th overall, showing that that car is quite competitive, particularly in these mixed conditions. We saw a surprising result from Albon and the Williams. I hold firm that my prediction of the Williams being the best midfield car is true, and this still looks to be the case, with them finishing ahead of the Aston Martin and ahead of both of the Alpines. We also saw Fernando Alonso performing quite well until his crash, although Lance Stroll was kind of nowhere, though he did end up finishing 6th in the end with all of the chaos that happened in the latter half of that race. The Racing Bulls looked relatively strong under Yuki Tsunoda. Obviously, we didn't get a chance to see what Isaac Hadjar's performance looked like, but we'll want to explore that later. We saw the Kick Sauber do better than most of their last season by finishing 7th and getting a points haul initially on this race. I don't know if that is only due to the chaos caused by cars in front of them crashing out and rookies underperforming, or if they will be a fringe points contender on most weekends. So what are some storylines that we'll want to follow for the remainder of the season? Some things were clear. This looks like it will be a repeat of the 2024 season, with Max Verstappen being a one-man team. Liam Lawson, I hope, will perform better in future races, though he definitely has a large gap to overcome. Verstappen will be competing against both McLarens for that championship, which means he's effectively fighting with one hand tied behind his back. The McLarens looked strong, and if their current performance is any indication, they are the favorites for the Constructors' title as well as the Drivers' Championship. For most of the race, it was looking like it would be a dogfight between Piastri and Norris, and there might be some contentious team orders that needed to be told to one of the drivers or the other. That was until both cars went off and Piastri went a lap down. Norris was able to recover and dive into the pits, which was the right call. This means that Norris is starting the season off with 25 points and Piastri only 2. So Piastri is starting off significantly behind. Given both drivers' talent, it is likely that they will get closer as the season progresses, though it's looking like Norris might be the title contender. Relationship between Russell and Antonelli. Russell was the clear favorite. Antonelli didn't look like he was anywhere near challenging Russell yet. Again, that's a lot to expect for a driver's first race, but we will want to watch if that gap improves as the season continues. We also saw the 2 Ferraris underperform. I don't know if it was purely strategy or just a lack of pace, though Charles Leclerc did finish in 8th ahead of Lewis Hamilton in 10th. Hamilton looked like he was being outperformed by Charles for most of the race, and I would love to see how that relationship and dynamic continues as the season progresses. I expect that Hamilton will get closer, though going into this season, my prediction is that Leclerc will outperform Hamilton most weekends on most tracks. It'll be interesting to see if that is accurate or if Hamilton usurps him. And with that, it's a brief overview of the Australian Grand Prix. There was chaos, drama, rain, and dry, and if this is any indication, this is going to be a fantastic season to keep an eye on. With that, I'll see you in the next video.